socializing. Oh shit, already 4 people in? Ah, man, the pressure's on. Minimize that. Let's get back into the fray with Marky, with Sarah. Just let me know if you guys got any particular. These earbuds out of my ear. I was listening to a YouTube video on a different machine, but I'll stop that now as I begin to talk. And as I talk, I'll remind you guys that I am Ben Rodriguez, aka Bar One Scorpio, aka Bar One online, and I'm the artist on the webcomic Peter's the Wolf. Any opinions expressed by me are my own opinions alone and do not reflect on the companies of White Lightning Productions or Palladium Books or any other company that I'm doing freelance for. Because let's face it, if anybody gets me rambling at any point, who knows what I might end up saying. Adjust the microphone and probably turn down this pickup a bit because you guys get so much of the little taps from my pens and whatnot. That's probably got to be driving people nuts. Oof, of course. Hi, Lonnie Gaylor. Yeah, it was. I think this might be the first time I've noticed your name in the chat. So thank you for joining us. I want to try and make these little sessions a bit more common, so really people who put in for the Indiegogo, for the Peter is the Wolf, the Long Overdue Book 2 can see that as the development goes that yes, I am doing the work and we're getting there, and this is going to be very much a, how do you say it, a director's cut maybe, an auteur's maybe instead, we can say. We could say it's a renegade cut, you know, like the Highlander movie 2. You see all the additional AT-AT walkers that I put into the background. You know, you're going to say, oh, that's what he originally wanted to do with the webcomic. Because the technology didn't exist 8 years ago, for me, 5 years ago maybe now, for me to do book 2 like it needed to be done. Not that this week's page is going to be, I'll probably do a late Wednesday session of the scanning because it's going to be a late update this weekend. Because I really haven't gotten drawing this next page yet. It's just been busy, too busy at work to draw, which is kind of one of the things I do. which is funny because everybody knows that I do adult management, and I get away with it because we're not supposed to be digging around into bringing a little DVD players or whatnot up to work, but it's okay to bring a book to work. And it's kind of funny that there's no distinction in the employee manual between reading a book and writing a book or drawing a book. So I've been getting they've let it slide that I draw my webcomic at work for years now. It's kind of interesting. Probably shouldn't disclose my work, but also, oh yeah, on my day job I don't. My opinions do not reflect on that company either. There's a whole bunch of people that probably should have nothing to do with my opinions in the world. Should probably disavow me at all times. You have no idea who this Ben Rodriguez guy is. He's a freak and a creep. Should probably dredge up some stories and just do story readings while I do these sometimes. I'll plan out some stuff for future versions of these scanning sessions, and now that I know how to download these to a degree at least, although so theoretically with me not knowing these things now I can end up posting them to YouTube. I'll save after that. But yeah, Sarah's indeed a spaz, so cliche to be like so many other fangirls. That general amalgam of ourselves between me and Chris and probably every fangirl that we've ever encountered over the years to some degrees or another, because there's a unique energy that they bring to a convention floor. Way back when I was still going to A-Con for a while, and you could tell what cartoons were popular by the joke that he had made. But Chris made the pun of referring to a group of fangirls that were sitting in a circle and just giggling and talking, and I think occasionally meowing because they were wearing cat hats and stuff. But he referred to them as the Fruits Basket Cases. And there's a new crop of them every year with every new show. And I'm pretty sure that, people make fun of the fanboy way too often in comparison to a big, but, and the geek girl is supposed to be some kind of triumphant, I don't know, feminist or pro, active thing when really, the I'm pretty darn sure that every male voice actor at some point or another, except for maybe Kyle Hebert, has learned to, just shrug off the squeeing fangirl glump assaults and whatnot. Of course, hopefully that's died down, but. And don't get me wrong about Kyle Hayberry. I like him a lot, and he's a great guy, but he ain't pretty. I think that's got to be also the hardest part. There's a couple of places that are just the hardest to fill, mainly because for volunteering for any convention, probably the hardest parts to fill are your security and your guest relations. Just about everything else is a slog with limited power and limited draw to it, but some people just will have a knack for it. Like your video game, I mean, though you will have a lot of people who are like interested in video gaming just because they ended up wanting. Those are people that want to have a passion for, let's put on the best video game room or whatever. But typically, you almost want to one of Yomacon's, and I don't really share Yomacon's opinions or Yomacon's opinions are not my own, and my opinions are not Yomacon's opinions, but when in the early years when they were organizing our security staff, one of the mantras was anybody who would volunteer for something like security we wouldn't want. They're volunteering, and that's just because that's actually a position of power when you can actually. So it was more of a, well, let's run you through volunteering or some other place and see how you do, and then promote you to put you in a position of actual responsibility and authority over people. We're not going to allow we're not going to allow people to go full Cartman. I respect my authority, And of course, the other one is probably, and I think this is like every convention's problem, is like probably has to run through this like, okay, who do we put in charge of guest relations? Because who is going to be just a normal person around, these stars? And of course, the new levels of stardom, because you can still have people just utterly losing it for somebody who makes a series of YouTube videos, reviews reviews movies that are like a decade and a half old on a website. And you'll still have people going nuts for them, which is like, wow. Let's see how you react. And I'm a great person for guest relations and stuff because I rarely actually know who anybody is. So they can actually. So there's been times where I'm like, okay, go up and pick up this person who's a guest. Okay, I'll do that. And I can never recognize anybody's face, or whatnot from those promo photos. I mean, how often do they look like that, or how often do they look like their role on screen? It's like, okay, I'll go pick up somebody at the airport. What is this guy, a staff member or something? Derp doop. So that's like one of the rare things I've ever done. looks like a normal dude to me, okay. Usually just end up art duties or trotting around hauling stuff from point A to point B. I have barely done any conventions this year. And it's palpable. This is going to be like the most common complaint I think I'm putting out this year is I haven't been out of town. I haven't been on these long haul road trips, which I'd usually do with other staff members from YomaCon too, because we'll, like me and Morgan will get tables at conventions and we'll both man and sell stuff, but it's always kind of fun to wedge everything into a car. Of course, it's not fun when nobody else will drive the friggin' car. Back when my parents had a van, and it was like one of those big whole, was it a club wagon? So it was like a full size, 2-row van and 2-bench van and big old hauling capacity. So we used to that used to be the armored personnel carrier for conventions, but I was about the only damn person who could actually drive the thing. So, when I'm being told, oh yeah, we'll drive in shifts, and you'll take the first shift, and then we'll go pick up some people in Ohio, and then we'll drive through, then we'll switch over at Pennsylvania, and then we'll make our way to Breezewood, and then we'll be in Baltimore, and then hey, instead I end up being up for nearly 24 hours driving because everybody else falls asleep instantly, and I'm used to midnight shifts and afternoon shifts, so I can be up that late anyways. But now it's afternoon of the next day. I haven't slept a wink, and I'm actually giggling at anything anybody says because of the sleep deprivation. And wow, I really need to get to a hotel room and sleep soon, or else we're gonna splatter on the highway, aren't we? That's funny. But of course, the great part about that, even being treated like that, there's always a silver lining, and that silver lining is, hey, if you're in charge of the wheel, then you're also in charge of the radio, man, and you can make them listen to whatever you want them to listen to. It's 13 hours of Dr. Demento novelty music. Yeah. Suffer, little. Some of my favorite long haul drives are places like, Baltimore. We go to Otakon all the time, and sometimes I'll end up in taking a similar route to Katsucon, though I haven't been down there in about couple of years now. Or NekoCon, which is NekoCon is another convention I love to do. Dizzy, who's the artist for that one. She's the head of the Artist Alley, and she does a lot of their product, all the mascot artwork, and she's really talented if you've seen her stuff. It's all cute. There's some other people that I bump into down there that I only bump into down south. And I'd really like to get back down to Anime Week in Atlanta, which I haven't been down to in years, but the one time I went, I think I only went one time, but the one time I went, I had an amazing time, and it was just so great and so laid back. So, would you like a sweet tea? And at that convention, the dance was actually way too crowded, but somebody and his buddies had like a backpacks that were huge speakers, and they were playing music off an MP3 player or some other rig, and we were dancing outside, just outside some doors, underneath an awning, and it was raining. It was lightly raining, and we were kind of like dancing in the rain to to different music, and it's kind of funny because you dance yourself, and you know how you get on the rave floor, and you'll be all hot and panting, and then then of course you're hot, you're sweating, but then you can just like dip out to go out from underneath this awning, and just rinse yourself off. Breaking this down panel by panel. And a spoonful of sugar, and at least not too bad of a job. Let's try to keep this from looking too much like a huge project. I'll tell you, as an artist, I don't think there's anything, and maybe other artists will agree with me on this one, but there's nothing more intimidating than blank canvas. And when I'm going into doing the digital edits and stuff, the mostly bare page, gosh, just so mind-numbingly. I don't want to approach this, so but once you see you got one part done, like once you got the background layers done, or once you have one panel done, the rest of it starts falling into place a little bit quicker. So I think I might kill this tonight. That was host the Anime Week in Atlanta. That if you remember that dance from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, when they were like, I don't know how they found themselves at like in a male like Chippendales male stripper review or dance review or something like that, and they were doing that dance to Apache Jump On It. Randomly, I joined a bunch of people and we all started doing that apropos of nothing. Which I think is one of the things you can only really start happening at the anime convention. I don't think that'll happen at any other style of convention. Probably not. A comic book convention. Definitely not like in a place where like San Diego, where everybody's just so intent on shopping or just probably not the sci-fi convention where everybody's too old. Maybe that's why I'm getting more into lit sci-fi and literary fiction and stuff, and all these audiobooks, and trying to catch up on different things because, oh, I must be getting up on the years. It's time to. Time to graduate to a more complaining and disease-ridden fandom. I think that was sad, really sad at one convention in my state that is kind of like it's a sci-fi con. It's a very, but it's been a lit sci-fi, very small now, kind of a dying convention, and just I knew it was really bad signs that this convention was never going to be really filling up a hotel anymore when they had a panel that was diabetes and fandom. I was like, wow, we're old and fat, aren't we? If that's instead of the latest TV or movie stuff, or bloggers, or you're gonna have a thing about we're all sick and dying. Here's a panel for the people who are sick and dying. But then again, I guess that as you have older fans in fandom, that's going to be a natural thing happening. And I guess I'd rather spend. I'm not sure if I'd rather spend a time. If I was forced to choose, would I spend time with the people who were old and fat and dying of it, or young and crazy and doing the panels for your headmates, and because the young, oh god, if we actually had panels that were dedicated to illnesses for young people at cons, boy, that would be some very funny, interesting stuff going on. How about a panel titled "Basics of Emotional Self-Control"? You know, just because it's Sunday does not mean you have to crumple into a bawling, crying heap. You know. Unimportant. And sorry, just futzing around with more stuff, and Let's backtrack that a bit because I screwed up. I done goofed. Not that I really seem to want to go dive into fandom that much anymore. Not like I used to. Then again, I think that's partly because just the tonal shift, thanks to the Tumblrina SJW crowd, in my opinion. This is just okay. The latest that's pissed me off is the reaction to a Milo Manara cover, an alternate cover for what, Spider Woman, who is, and Milo Manara is just a freaking incredible artist. If you've ever seen a bunch of his stuff, he's been around for decades. He is well respected in the indie scene, but of course, and I think he's even done work for Marvel before in various books and covers and stuff. I think back when they had Epic and whatnot, when they were having their own heavy metal, I think he did some stuff for them. And of course, he does stuff for heavy metal, but so he's that one of that crowd of Euro artists, and he's got that style. So when he does this, so he does a cover for and it's going to be an alternate cover. It's not the only one you have to glare at. There's going to be like a special order of me that one special, because people who know him, are going to want to want to collect that art. Will buy it just for that cover. But other people, but you got a bunch of little SJWs freaking out and saying, "Oh, it's so sexist," and they'll post it and rage about it on their little Tumblr blogs. And hey, Marvel should be ashamed of themselves, and hey, we're gonna have our armored lady Thor for however long that lasts, but how dare you have anything else other than what this one specific group approve of? This everything else is verboten, and that's really beginning to piss me off. It's censorship. It's an opt-in part of the economy too. This is an alternate cover. you don't have to fucking buy it if you don't like it. And if they end up with a stack of these things that nobody purchased, well, then that's the risk they took. It's supply side economics, but no, they're gonna get pissed off and they're gonna say, you shouldn't release this, and and try to shame Marvel into not printing it, and then they're gonna also, and then they're gonna try and basically run this artist who's been drawing for decades. Oh, I'm sorry, if this is the first fucking time you've ever heard of Milo Manara, I've known about this guy and his artwork, and I've really liked his drawing. He's got a great art style. He's done artwork for various, art and film galleries and stuff, throughout Italy for years. Well, screw you, kid. This guy has a right to earn a living. And but this isn't about arguing in the realm of ideas. This is not about, they're never going to offer, the people who complain about this shit never actually offer an alternative. They just tell you what you should and shouldn't draw, or should and shouldn't do. And this always hits me close to home because, well, Peter the Wolf is, I mean, nobody knows about us, but we are a porn webcomic. We've had a few reviews, and most of them been like, oh my god, this stuff is horrible. To one degree or another. We've got actually some bizarrely positive reviews of some reviews that were like, yeah, thank goodness this is porn and isn't taking itself too seriously, because even though, yeah, we do now take ourselves, the whole series has been getting a lot more serious in the last couple of years, the last year or so. It's kind of, people are saying, yeah, you guys are going Cerebus syndrome now. But I tend to take a hard line, hard stance against censorship. If it's an internal thing, where a website, but just says, okay, we're going to change our policies, like the recent Hentai Foundry, and of course previously to that, there was for Affinity. I've got artwork on both websites, and I don't really do lowly, but both of those sites had made decisions, saying, and they were controversial when they made them, because apparently there was enough people upset that, well, you didn't, but it was their decisions to say, well, now that everybody's noticing this more, let's head this off the pass and say we're not gonna have Cubby or Lily or whatnot, or Shota. Mind you, they're still allowing, things like on Hentai Foundry, like a lot of fan art, and saying, well, no, we're not going to cave to a bunch of DCMs or whatever they're called, these, C&Ds, or DCMs, or whatever, the various DCRMs, or I'm trying to remember what the other terms are. We're going to yank down, we're not going to force somebody to cancel their successful Ask character Tumblr because one guy who wants that character to be his waifu is upset. Yeah, haters. God, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's a spandex outfit, and which, of course, I grew up knowing is a privilege, not a right. Unfortunately, in my area, nobody ever else did. And I don't mean people dressing up as, I don't mean nerds. I mean just the people going to all my years of registering jockey. All my years of registered jockey, I've seen some horrible stretch pants incidents. I think there's a website devoted just to that nowadays called People of Walmart. Even though I've never actually worked at a Walmart, and for some reason, whenever I actually go up there to places, if I'm ever shopping, I'm not sure if I'm just not looking right or I'm hitting up at the right wrong times, but I never really seem to see the worst of this stuff. But when I was younger, I used to work at Arbor Drugs, and that left me with some interesting incidents because you work at a drugstore, and I'll just say this, and this is how most of my stories or most of my recollections of that place go is if you want to know what the worst customers I think I've ever encountered were people at that drugstore. And that's because, by definition, they hadn't had their meds yet. The easiest damn job I think I ever registered jockeyed was actually fast food at my college. But that's because, stoners are so happy when you give them their food. The main reason there's a counter between the two of us is so they don't come up and hug you, man. It's just, my burger looks so beautiful, bro. Oh, man. Of course, I know, like, you go off the reservation there, man, and out into the real world. Fast food's got to be hell in the everyday world. But it's not that hard. I'm not sure. It's just. Then again, I was like, yeah, it's probably fast food probably has to be, or in general service work, it varies. I don't think by company so much, but by specific location, because you're culling from the neighborhood that you're around, and safe, interesting. But yeah, congratulations. There's my first rambling rant. Just Mila Manara. Reaction to this irked me immediately, and that it's always the same. There's the same narrative of the articles. There's only one narrative that's allowed in the press currently, in geek press, and that is the, oh, it's so sexist and horrible, and men are so bad, and oh, geek males need to be ashamed of themselves that they would like this. Is the social justice bullshit that is making fandom less fun every year until we learn to just shun these people online to the point where they won't want to, and then also tell conventions, yeah, hey, don't invite these people to stand on their soapboxes and politicize my escapism. You know, it's going to get worse. It's going to be the no. Part of it is the bigger the the bigger the policies pages, the less people will actually be able to relax. And shit, I used to, I recall conventions where, the unspoken policy was, you know, oh, on public displays of affection and nudity, please none before the sun goes down. After that, it's after once all the norms are in this hotel are checked into their rooms, go ahead. Just keep it to the party floors. And shit, didn't we used to have the I can't remember. Is it Leslie Fish or Mercedes Lackey who'd done the song "Freaking the Mundanes" to the tune "Waltzing Matilda"? And it was just, it's just such a quick reminder of how the earlier generations of fandom felt free to just be utter goofballs. But nowadays, everybody's walking on eggshells because current policies are. Everybody has to have their special snowflake space. And it's become less about, hey, being a grown up and still loving this stuff, but instead being coddled into an eternal childhood. That's what I really don't like about these, and maybe this is because early on I took to so many stand-up comics like George Carlin and Dennis Miller, who weren't afraid to get on a rant and offend people and talk about some real topics that that would shock for very deliberate reasons. And as I mentioned on my Facebook a while back, is it why the hell is it so many of the current atheists are a lot of guys with British accents who are slowly finding themselves turning right wing? They're not going religious. I mean, there's a lot of people who are not religious, but all of a sudden they're finding themselves, locked in with, what would be considered like really conservative views, simply because some people have taken, and we knew this way back from the 90s, that political correctness was an incredibly stupid thing, and it was going to be counterproductive, and you had, that's why one of my favorite movies from the 90s is PCU. But the majority of our society didn't learn a damn thing from that movie's message, and instead, doubled down. Now it's what they try to call it other thing, something else than political correctness, because they do know that using that terminology, they'll pretty much get laughed off the stage. But these TEDx talks are kind of humiliating, and I've personally gotten tired of things like Upworthy is a glurge site, and nobody just uses that term for it. Okay, here's my... See, this is why I gotta distance myself from everybody else when I make an opinion, which I'm finally gonna start doing, but... fuck's sakes, Upworthy. This is one of the quickest ways for me to lose respect for anybody, is if they just start sharing Upworthy links all the damn time. I call it Upworthless. I've been saying that, using that term for a while now. And personally, my faith in humanity has yet to be restored. I do lose a lot of faith in the people who share these stories, and particularly in regards to their credulity, because it's a goddamn glurge site, if you know that term from Snopes. And all these, like, when the title goes like, oh, if you're not crying by the end of this video, well, that probably just means that I'm a grown-up with the full, ability to see the full scope of everything that's going on, and realizing that this little whatever matters very little in the greater scheme of things. But I do not suspect that the journalist, the quote-unquote journalist, who shared this this person on this glorified e-bombs world, has no emotional control. Probably not a grown-up in any way, shape, or form. And that's another thing I'm really going to hate about BuzzFeed, just about all of Gawker Media, is we gave E-Bombs World so much shit for stealing stuff from around the internet and just slapping their logo on it. But every time somebody shares something from BuzzFeed or Gawker or any of the Gawker Media sites or any of the Upworthy sites, hey, how about you just go up a bit? Just go up a bit. And just fucking click the original YouTube link and share that. I will have a bit more respect for you if you just follow one level of clicking up to the original source. Because all these, oh, this is the most amazing thing you've ever seen, and it's just the images off of somebody's DeviantArt, and is anybody gonna fucking go to this person's DeviantArt? Or are they going to just stop at the level of the IO9 or wherever fucking link came from? Your fucking clickbait articles. Oh, I really begin to loathe these. Facebook is indeed making people stupider, just because of the nature of the sharing on that site. Oh, just in general. what am I talking about? Just for some reason, one of the general irritants that I've come, and it's like something that only a person with like me would end up being irritated by some non-issue like this. Oh, even though it is kind of an issue, it is kind of an issue because I think modern media, the clickbait sharing style of modern media has really upped the credulity of the average American. Although we've always had the sayings like, what's the saying that a lie can make run halfway around the world before the truth has had time to put on its shoes. I guess I'm only now really truly noticing this in the modern internet age. And since modern journalism is this 24-hour cycle of we have to get clicks now, we have to get people watching our ads now, there's very little desire to get a full story before it's reported. And this is really screwing up people's lives. Because people will take any panic, run with it, and they will ignore, of course, the retraction. Fox News has a great style of doing this. Well, a lot of 24-hour news stories, but because all those 24-hour news networks rely on like a 1-hour TV show format. And if you notice in the first segment, they will say, is this, and it's always like a question for the title. That's what they used to do. Is something going to is thing that we're about to report on the worst thing ever, and will it kill you immediately? And they'll go. That's going to be in the first 5 minutes. They'll announce that that's one of the stories coming up. That story won't be hit upon. Are you going to die in the next 30 minutes story will be what they'll plug that throughout the episode, and about by the 45-minute mark, after you've sat through 3 commercial breaks, then they'll actually have the story, and it's, oh no, you're not. They'll have the expert on, and no, this you're not in danger. Everything's normal. The 24-hour cable news networks basically make their living off of scaring grandmothers into sitting through 3 car commercials before telling them to calm down. There's no, grandma, there's no need to put the cyanide in your cat. Give your cat cyanide so it won't have to live through the apocalypse that's impending, because it's not actually coming. This is me unprepared rambling and ranting. Yeah, if I actually could work myself up or get loud, I'd probably get a very nice freeform stream of consciousness flip out going if I could. Maybe I really do have to start, starting episodes with notes. So I can make this maybe a bit more like a rolling podcast as I draw. Save. Alright, her skin tone is done. Which I usually start off with a 30% gray base. Because she has a tan skin color. Let me see if you guys have had anything to say or been busy to listen to me. Good night, man. John D. Like that channel. I think this week, probably Thursday or something, I'll do a Picarto. Because if I get this done right now tonight, the next page I'll be going on is 178X, which will be, instead of 178A, as you can see how I title these pages, it's 178A. That means it's the general version. And then I'll have the adults-only version of this page, which will be on the flip side of the comic, is 178X, is what I titled the files. Just so I can, tell what's what, just looking at a list. And actually what I need to do is go into, let's see, is it still on Reddit recent? No. Let's go to open. Not so bright and shiny objects, which is this chapter's name. I'll go a few pages earlier. Because what a sweater looks like. It was just kind of a white, lots of white. Because I was wondering exactly what the coloration was on this sweater that he had wrapped around himself for a loincloth that Gene then stole. I'm not completely done yet though, am I? I've got to do the word balloons. Of course, every time I start doing this, or is that the screen? That is the screen. Every time I start doing the shading, it really points out all these little flaws in the line work that I also have to correct. Which drive me nuts. Just I don't know if anybody else notices it, but this is the shit that I'm gonna notice when it goes to print. And I'll slowly go more and more insane as I notice this stuff, as I notice these little weird speckles on Gene Goodwin's face. this little bit of sleeve. I haven't done a bubble round. Done the lasso tool. I could do the zoom in with a little. I keep on forgetting my Wacom tablet's features, which is kind of embarrassing. File, save. I think we're actually done with the shading. Boom. Now let's take a look at what needs to be. I'm going to layer these numerical layers down into the shades layer. And look at those word balloons. They look horrible. We delete from the right layer. Do these layers, it should be about 5. Airbrush. instead. Just fill that one. Oh, god damn it. It wasn't even 100% black. That worked. Oy vey. Well, you embarrass yourself in the home run there, Ben. Home stretch. Brent Weeks, that was the artist whose novel I most recently listened to again. The first book in the Lightbringer trilogy of his, The Black Prism, and I think I'm about to start listening to the second book in the series, The Blinding Knife. I'd gotten the first book a while back, but I was like, okay, I'm finally going to listen to the second book. Better re-listen to the first one to refresh myself. You see, these are way now that I've resized this to the text to go to print. These word balloons are way too big. I think I like more than the mention of noodle implements is the noodle instant. And here we have the allusion to one having had happened in Peter's past. I don't think we've ever divested Chris has never put into script form or mentioned exactly how and when Peter got his nickname of Two Bats. But at some point, pretty much the entire high school found out exactly how big he is, in human form at least. And of all the things to follow you out from high school, the last place you want to stand out oddly enough above the crowd or different. The last place you want to be different is when you're in high school. As much as you want to be different and unique, you don't want it. You want to be different and unique, but for God's sakes, let's not have anybody actually realize that. I spent a good portion of my high school once I really started getting back into drawing again and just like head down, and I actually used to have people ask me all the time if I was upset or something because it looked like I was crying. No, I was actually just had my head down at my desk and I'm drawing. I'm like up close to, whatever drawing material I'm in, and I'm like working on some piece. My sketchbook or whatever. I was usually doing stuff on loose leaf paper then, but I would always be doodling or something in classes. then I got to the point where some people did notice that I was getting pretty good at drawing and cartoons and stuff, especially when I started getting the anime manga. So I'd end up drawing little marker tattoos on people. It was a way to pass the time. God knows we didn't want to actually be learning. Running a little bit overtime actually tonight. Might as well though, because I'm so close to wrapping this up. Let's not break this momentum. That's actually happening, which is rare enough for me, it feels. The Hoochie Coochie ADD, also of course being the ragtime classic of 1916 and Tin Pan Alley and Hoochie Coochie ADD. Man, I forget. By this point, I forget who comes up with these things and how we come up with these things a lot of the time. I do need to move this over here, don't I? Because a bit of male hinder is sauce for the gander. Or the goose, I'm not sure which is which. Looks like the next session that I do will likely be a Picarto session. Because, boom, we're almost done with this, aren't we? And I don't want to mess with live streams, policies, which I'm not entirely sure of, but I'm pretty damn sure they don't want adults-only stuff being shared on their site, even for as much as a month. And of course, this means I'll need to really look into doing these, sharing these things elsewhere too, more. Stroke. The last bits of cleanup. if it only had some brains attached, later indeed, guys. I run nearly 15 minutes over what I was going to schedule my time as. So I'm going to stop recording. Remind you guys that I'm Bar1 Scorpio. You can find Bar1 Scorpio, BAR, the number 1 Scorpio, on Fur Infinity, on DeviantArt, Anti-Foundry, all sorts of websites. And of course, Peter is the Wolf at peteristhewolf.com. I'd like to thank you. Oh, better save this before I close. Yeah. Thank you for joining me tonight. And I'll announce the next time out. And sweet dreams. Sleep tight. Don't let the werewolves bite.